Have you ever listened to the radio at night? Especially if it's a guest or if it's a radio personality that you enjoy, that a mellow voice that kind of just cuts through the darkness where you can just kind of chill and just zone out. Even if you're watching it on television, Keith Olbermann, for example, they would come on night after night after night after night, and you knew, even if you were in that house or in that apartment, lonely, by yourself, alienated, that that person who's going to give a particular point of view that you may or may not agree with, but he's there, he's live, and you two are live in an odd way together, despite the fact he doesn't know about you at all. I guess my point is there's something about the constant aspect of it that's comforting in somewhat of a weird way. It almost like it affirms your own existence by having somebody else out there who is also existing. On top of that, that's also works in buffoonery. For example, Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum has been a political buffoon within the longest part of my political memory or political awareness. Back during the election, if you remember, for example, here's one of his greatest hits.
The Hollywood elites and the liberal billionaires who funded this, it's all about politics. Is this really all about politics, or is it all about keeping our schools safe? Because it is about keeping our schools safe. Then we have to have much broader discussion than the discussion that's going on right now. How about kids, instead of looking to someone else to solve their problem, do something about maybe taking CPR classes or trying to deal with situations that where there is a violent shooter that you can
how are they
actually
looking at other
respond to
people?
that.
I would ask you, they took action.
Yeah, they took action to ask someone to pass a law.
School next year.
Just so we're clear, at a certain point, Rick Santorum argues that they need to take like CPR classes. The notion, he's talking about school shootings, and in the context of school shootings, these students should have did something. Well, they did do something. They tried to get a law passed in order to make their school safer. No. I mean, they need to do something individually with stopping bullying, and also they need to do something individually within their schools, apparently, to stop gun violence. Rick Santorum is a goofball. Those students have no power individually to do anything. If they could, they would have. They went to the legal apparatus to try to get that legal apparatus to do something to make and ensure their lives were safer. I guarantee you that is doing something, considering most of the time, nobody does anything like that. I hope you understand what I mean. To argue, his issue is you guys are trying to get the government to do their jobs. And instead of getting government to do their job, I need you guys to do something else. You know, the thing is, Rick Santorum has been giving these goofball answers for a very long time. And in that, in an odd way, the fact that I can always find Rick Santorum saying something stupid, it affirms my existence. Rick Santorum does this again. I didn't even know Rick Santorum was still on the airwaves, and yet he's still there. A little bit older, not wiser in the least. He is going to make an argument about abortion that is astonishingly stupid. And he's going to get taken to the woodshed almost immediately. If you are making Bakari Sellers look good, you need to stop whatever you are doing. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. We like to say this content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to do it. Now, we'll be having contributor appreciation later this evening. That will be taking place tonight. My wife and I will be doing that. That's usually a lot of fun, so definitely stay tuned for that. But on this one, I could not let this one slide by without commentary because it is so horrendous that even though it shouldn't require any response, it was uttered by a person who's on airwaves who I guarantee you there will be 10% of the population that hears it and says, yeah, that guy's right. In which case, it requires a response. Rick Santorum comparing slavery with abortion.
Just simply can't do.
Yeah.
All right. Just one final point on that is, look, I consider right now as someone who considers himself pro-life, and I can say the same thing about politicians. I have a hard time reconciling people who are allowing people to be killed in the womb. But you know what? I do. And we all do. And we all have to reconcile that we have differences
slavery and abortion
about
are
how
not the
we
same
treat other
things.
human beings.
Slavery and
I believe
abortion
it
are
is
not
the
the
same.
same thing. I mean, no,
I believe
that's
it is.
no.
He said, I believe it is the same. I believe it is the same. Like in that situation, you could have said, no, I don't think, look, I'm not saying that it's the same. You could have dodged that, not necessarily elegantly, but not necessarily take it head on in such a provocative way. However, he did. So this is where we are. Something so ludicrous shouldn't require response. For that matter, shouldn't have even been uttered in the first place. And yet, here we are. A systemic process backed by a sovereign force where human beings were bought, owned, deformed, stolen from, killed, terrorized, alienated, deprived of the most basic elements of intellectual pursuits. We should be extremely clear regarding what we are talking about. The deformation within the context of all of those things is the most profound and, for that matter, necessary, drastic, and necessary. Because to do so demanded the destruction of reality itself, shattered, basically like punching a fist through a glass. The very basis of operation for a society like this requires all powers and diligence of societal intention of the benefactors and the aggrieved to maintain and propagate through time a fiction of reality. In one part, there's a man or woman being distorted by magic of law into a slave. But also, what does it do to the psyche of a man who is operating as a benefactor in such an oppressive, sadistic system? It is incomprehensibly deranged society with suffering on a radically magnificent level. To give some level of context of what Americans was doing at the time, think of human depravity emblematic of Nazi Germany's intention for the Soviet Union. Murder the local population and use the leftovers, slaves. If Hitler won, it is conceivable that Germany would have taken on a similar course of America with European characteristics. Russia would have grown up to be, would have had statues of Goebbels and Goering. There would have been a diminished population that would fight for their rights in a racist system, eventually winning legislation on the books, but not necessarily in practice, something they would have to fight for another several decades in order to get some level of substantial social change. And then, after all of the unspeakable crimes that we're discussing here, meaning Nazi Germany would have taken a particular course, conceivably similar to what we've taken. But I'm getting back to the point of the slavery comment. Of all the unspeakable crimes, just the sheer terrorizing existence itself, they were given nothing. They were deprived of everything. And then they were kicked loose. To compare, a woman choosing to end the existence of what amounts to being a near zygote after an unprotected tryst is just obscene. Your entire society and the edifice of that society had to change on this idea that that person was not, in fact, a man, that was something else, when all of them knew that he was. You are comparing that to a woman ending an unborn, unwanted child. And with the extra bonus, that I need to add, that the moment that child is born, Rick Santorum will tell that child to go fuck itself, because Rick Santorum has no interest in taking care of that child. I could be less hostile, less concerned about this if the Republican Party said, yes, we agree with abortion because we don't want any life to die, and we will take care of that child, and we will ensure that that child has the best upbringing, can fulfill its potential as a human being from the standpoint of intellectual pursuits, and even in the way that society deems and engages him so he himself can see himself with a certain degree of esteem, we will do those things because we, the Republican Party, believe in growth and the fullest, exceptionalist part of what the individual can be. That's not what they do. That is not either party. If you indeed believe that the children are the future of your nation, which they are, and that certain experiences of that child either makes that child better or worse, meaning there are things that that child will have to overcome, roadblocks that are that much more severe if you don't attend to certain needs of the child, like living in certain communities or whatnot. If you know that those things are a hindrance to that child achieving its fullest abilities. If you also know that you can put situations in that when you shuffle X number of human beings through, let's say 70% turn out a particular way, then there's something wrong with that process. And you can see that, you can quantify that. You can look at the statistical outcomes. You can say, okay, all right, there's something there. If you could do that, and you don't do anything about it, meaning in all of these situations, if you acknowledge that how children go, there go our country, and that there's certain things that make their lives better and make that process of them growing up into adulthood and that transition and allow them to access that fullest potential of their abilities, which allows us as a country to also excel, but that much more of a measure. If we can agree with that, then what's the justification for saying you need to have a kid, but we're going to tell you to fuck off the moment that you have that kid? The gun video, those kids went to the government to say, we need help. This is a petition of our grievances. And Rick Santorum told those kids to go fuck themselves. That basically you need to figure that out yourself. This is the point that I'm trying to make here. Slavery is not akin to a woman getting rid of a kid. Slavery is not akin to any of that stuff. Slavery is more akin to Nazi Germany and what they wanted to do to the Soviet Union. The only difference is Hitler lost. America, and wiping out the Native American population and using African Americans as slaves, were able to win. Hitler didn't get his statues of Goering or statues of Hitler in the various places of Russia. America did get those statues built up because, again, America ended up winning. Rick Santorum, his argument here is phenomenal, that a man would say that with a straight face. I'm just saying, it's the notion that you would say that with a straight face. And Bakari Sellers, let's go to his response. I don't want to leave without his response. Because he's in the moment. Rick Santorum said that. You have to respond.
No, that's
Yes.
like apples. That's like apples and bobcats.
No, it's
There's
not.
nothing the same about slavery and abortion. And let's not contort ourselves and have it. Let's actually stay on track. I mean, if there is a mother who is about to die, or if she is raped or the victim of incest, and she makes a decision, Rick, that's not the same thing as being drug
That's
over
not-
here
that's- that's less than 1% of-
Just so we're clear. That's a... Look. You don't have to take the maximalist position on abortion. You don't. Rape or incest, I don't care. I don't care if that woman just had a tryst from a one-night stand in a bar after she had a bad day, and then all of a sudden she gets pregnant and her day gets that much worse. I don't care. I put no moral judgment on that at all. You need to function as a society. You need to get from point A to point B. Your society gives no shits at all about murdering people abroad. We do it constantly. Your society gives no shits about putting people in homeless situations or putting people in situations where they are unsafe and hazardous, of leaving our elderly basically to suffer and die at the vine once we've effectively used them up like toothpick, to squeezed out the parts that we needed and then discard them. not necessarily wanting to take care of them through some kind of social security program. We don't even give a shit about our kids, or for that matter, the people of this country, to ensure that they have health care. So spare me this notion that you care for the zygotes. You don't, spare me. Just spare me. You don't need, Bakari, to take the maximalist position in this situation. You should not care, nor should you place some kind of moral judgment implicit in you taking this maximalist position on a person or a woman getting an abortion. I just don't care. It's none of my business. Not just not none of my business. It is even potentially better for the society for that kid not to be born in a situation where that mother doesn't want that kid. Especially if that kid who's unwanted is going to deal with alienation and all sorts of issues associated with their growing up. It's going to stunt their growth or hurt people around them in their society when that kid reacts from the way that society basically has thrown them away. I guess my very basic point is, this is a stupid argument for him to make. And you don't need to indulge this argument in the way of trying to take a position like that in order to push back on the stupidity that he just has uttered. Sellers, look good. You've done something monstrously wrong. You've done something monstrously wrong. And, you know, Bakari, yeah, I'll leave it here. I mean, sometimes you're in the heat of the moment and it's hard to kind of process everything that just happened. And he's just said something monstrously stupid. And you need to respond almost like, bam, in the moment. So, you know, I understand. But to take that particular position is a conscious choice. Whether it's a implicit thing that you jump to immediately, it's still a conscious, explicit choice. You didn't have to take the maximalist position. You could have just said, well, that's insane. A person getting an abortion for any particular reason is in no way tantamount to generations, hundreds of years of exploitation, theft, rape, beating, killing, whipping, like the process of dehumanization, of deforming a man into a slave, not to mention the owner of that process who's being deformed in and of himself as he does the deforming. So no, those things are not related in the least. Apples and fucking Godzilla. I'll leave it here. Like, share,